The Kremlin has confirmed Russian President Vladimir Putin and US President Donald Trump have agreed to meet in the coming days. Now, the announcement comes on the eve of Trump's deadline for Moscow to agree on a ceasefire to end the Ukraine war. It also follows a visit to Moscow on Wednesday by US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. The Kremlin says it's working out the finer details of the president's planned meeting with the White House and that the possibility of three-way talks involving Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy has also been discussed. Right, well, Osama bin Javaid is following those latest developments in Moscow.
It's like clockwork. For the fifth time since February, President Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff arrived in Moscow, and a convoy sped to the Kremlin to discuss a looming deadline to a ceasefire with Ukraine. Russian officials said the meeting was positive, yet the relationship between the United States and Russia has become colder in recent months. Donald Trump has voiced increasing frustration over the lack of progress towards peace.
Our president received the US Special Presidential Envoy Steve Witkoff this morning. They had a very useful and constructive conversation. The Ukraine issue was at the center of the talks. The second issue is the strategic cooperation between the US and Russia. We have sent messages, particularly on the Ukraine issue. Some messages were also received from President Trump.
Although this one didn't last as long as previous meetings, the message remains similar: an end to what Russia calls its special military operation against Ukraine. Ukraine and the US have been seeking a full and immediate ceasefire for months now. The Kremlin insists that will only be possible after a comprehensive agreement to end the conflict. Russian drones and missile strikes are hitting Ukraine constantly, while Kyiv continues to strike Russian transport hubs, refineries and oil depots. And a prolonged war combined with the ability to withstand strict Western sanctions means Russia has dug its heels even further.
It's not Ukraine which decides, because we see Ukraine is used in the hands of Western countries to contain Russia. It's not about just to help Ukraine, so we shouldn't be probably so naive. Well, it's about to contain Russia, and we see this containment of Russia is happening for 3.5 years. Maybe the United States and the European Union, they want to get rid of this conflict, or maybe to get away of this conflict. Well, they need to find the way how to do it in a more maybe gracious way.
A new wave of sanctions are targeting Moscow and its allies. The Kremlin says threats to penalize countries that trade with Russia are illegal. The Trump White House is exerting more pressure on India, which along with China are the largest importers of Russian oil. But the Russian president is adamant that he can sustain military gains while not ruling out a peace deal, and also maintain ties with Donald Trump.
Right, well, let's go live to Osama bin Javaid. Osama, what more can you tell us? Any more details have they been fleshed out about this potential meeting happening?
Well, we know now that according to the presidential aide of President Vladimir Putin, the details are still being ironed out. We're expecting that sometime as early as next week. The venue has not been announced, and it has not been announced exactly what these two presidents will be discussing, but it's quite obvious that it is on the top of the agenda, the issue in Ukraine. Russia's war in Ukraine, which is dragged on for 3.5 years. What President Trump has called is something from a mess from his predecessor that he wants to clear up, something that he wants to be seen as doing in not just in the sphere of Russia and Ukraine, but other conflicts worldwide as well. And that gives a lot of Russians hope that there might be some sort of an end to this crisis. On behalf of President Putin, the way it is being played out in Russian media is that he is, despite all of the military advances, still willing to negotiate. But again, it is being seen with some skepticism, because they believe that if President Putin gives in and gives time to the Ukrainians, they could regroup like what happened in the Minsk I agreement, and that is what they do not want to repeat. So still, a lot of gaps that need to be bridged, a lot of differences that exist on both sides. Putin's view is that there needs to be multiple groups that work towards a comprehensive plan to de-escalate and make sure that all of the territories come to an agreement which is acceptable to both Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine obviously wants Russia to leave all of its territories, guarantee that it is not going to carry out any further incursions, and the guarantor in the middle is the United States, which on many fronts is also seen as a competitor to Russia. Just last week, you've seen President Trump repositioning nuclear submarines. In the last few months, you've seen him going from very hopeful that he can reach a deal with President Putin to calling him names and saying that it is becoming very difficult. So all in all, the atmosphere feels that there could be some movement, but again, a lot of groundwork will still need to be done before these two leaders meet.
Yeah, so Osama, as you said, a lot of muscle flexing, if you like, from Trump. Do you think Trump's pressure on Putin has paid off?
Well, it is yet to be seen on what comes out of it. Obviously, the Russians want to be seen as people who do not want to oppose any solution. The US president indicating and sending his special aid. Again, this is unconventional diplomacy. Steve Witkoff is not what you would call your conventional diplomat. He's somebody who's very close to President Trump, somebody who's been going in and out of Russia, somebody who's been able to secure release of American citizens, and somebody who carries a very direct business-like approach rather than diplomatic norms. So it will remain to be seen on what actually they discuss and what comes out of it. But again, there's a lot of pressure on Russia, including US and European Union sanctions, the global isolation. And the Russians will tell you that they have been able to circumvent all of those sanctions. They've been able to come out and their economy has faltered but not fallen. And they've found new partners in the world. And that to them causes a threat and an alarm, not just in America, but in Europe as well.
OK, thank you very much, Osama bin Javaid, there in Moscow.
Don't miss out, get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.